Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Radical Disruption. I am going to be chatting all about selling on Instagram stories with 10 in depth ideas. And I just have to preface by saying that there are too many ideas and too many examples in terms of like text wise to put all of this inside of the show notes. So we'll give a summary, like a very brief summary in the show notes that you can check out. But I highly recommend listening to this episode when you have a little bit of time to take some notes so that way you don't have to keep referencing this over and over and over again. I mean, if you want to do that, I would be honored. But the easiest thing for you with this, because I am going to give so many different prompts as well as examples, would be to pull out a notebook, a piece of paper to be able to write these things down. So again, you don't have to reference it a bajillion times. And you're more likely to take action when you actually write it down. Let's be honest here. Okay, with all that being said, I'm diving into 10 different in depth ideas. So I'll give you a prompt and then I'm going to give you an example of what this looks like. Obviously, we can't look at this visually. I wish that we could look at these visually, but maybe close your eyes, picture it as I'm talking about it in the examples. All right, now prompt number one when it comes to selling on Instagram stories, share the background of how your offer came to be. Why did you create your offer? What was the light bulb moment where you knew that this was the offer that you were going to create? An example, I created the around the clock masterclass because the technique that I teach inside has made me well over $10,000 this year, an additional extra $10,000 that I truly would not have made otherwise. And I would be selfish to not share something that works so well and is so simple to implement into your business. Plus, when I originally learned this tip, it literally blew my mind. So that's how my offer came to be. Prompt number two, use a real life scenario that is not related to your offer. Let me repeat that. A real life scenario not related to your offer or to your business. This needs to be something outside of your business, outside of your offer, and tie that back into what it is that you teach in your offer. How do you do this? I want you to think of something that happens in your day to day life, or even something unusual that happens or has happened in the past that can be related back to what it is that you teach. So you can start off this story by saying, if blank has taught me anything about blank, dot, 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 it's blank. And then share the lesson that you learned plus how this ties into what it is that you teach inside of your offer. An example of this, being pregnant has taught me anything about content. It's that people don't see everything that you post or pay attention to all of your offers and content. This then led me into a conversation about the importance of selling on stories and talking about your offer multiple times in multiple ways. So that's my example there. That was something that was a real life situation, being pregnant, that's outside of my business. And I tied that back into what I teach inside of my offer. Prompt number three, share how you approach something in your niche differently. How do you go about doing this? I want you to think about something in your industry or your niche that you either don't agree with. And this could be like a practice, a topic, a methodology, a technique. And I want you to talk about it. So you're going to start off your story by saying, I don't care for blank. Or you could start it off by saying, I do blank different. And then you're going to explain the why behind your approach. An example, I don't care for hustling 24/7. I don't care for quick wins and overnight success. I'm here to build strategically so that I have a business not just now, but for years to come. And then this led me then to talking about what I teach inside of scalability, which is all about sustainable scaling. Prompt number four, talk about why your offer is different from any other offer out there that teaches the exact same outcome. Because here's the thing, let's be real and honest here. There are a bunch of other offers out there who teach something very similar in terms of outcome than what you teach. So how can you stand out? Some questions to think about. What's the number one misconception when it comes to achieving the outcome that it is that you teach? How does your offer take this into account to avoid potential roadblocks? How does your unique framework or methodology save students time or money or any of those things by getting to the cause of the problem? What experience or background do you have that makes your offer unique? Again, there are a lot of courses on the same topic. Why yours? Yes, people are going to be attracted to you, but what else? Dive deeper there. An example, in my business, a big chunk of my income comes from selling on Instagram stories. And I have a very specific way that I sell on stories that doesn't scream, "Hi, I'm selling. Look at me. Look at my offer. Tap the link." And if you watch my stories, you can see this in action. This is what I teach in Stories That Sell. People tell me all of the time, even when I've talked about the offer multiple times on my stories, even in one day, even in one week, they still read all of it because it's so interesting. That's how Stories That Sell came about. I approach things differently. I do things differently. And you can literally see that when you watch my stories. Rule of thumb, this is just a side note here when it comes to selling. If it's boring you, it's boring to others. A little side note there. All right, prompt number 5. What is the vibe of your offering? Talk about that on stories. Example, the Scaling Unlocked Mini Mind vibe is scaling with the type of ease that you make money while you're out living your life. And then after you share the vibe, I want you to think of a real life example of what that vibe looks like. After I shared the vibe of the Scaling Unlocked Mini Mind, I literally gave the example. I actually have done this a bunch of different times. One of the examples that I've given in the past, I was on a ski lift. It was a Wednesday afternoon with my family, and $4,000 hit my bank account. And that's me making money while I'm out living my life, right? So that's a perfect living, breathing example of the vibe of the offer. And this could be an example from your life, or it could be a client case study too. So it doesn't just have to be from you. Prompt number 6, talk about why you are qualified to teach what you teach inside of your offer or the service that you provide. How do you go about doing this? I want you to share about either years of experience, maybe certifications, trainings, education, degrees, the amount of clients that you've worked with, maybe results that you've personally achieved by implementing what it is that you teach. Humble brag on yourself here. And you want to start this story off by saying something along the lines of reflecting on this month or reflecting on this quarter or reflecting on this year. Example, I might share an income screenshot, and then I might share the behind the scenes of what happened that month. So I share my income. Maybe I made, I don't know, $50,000 that month. What did that month look like though? Behind the scenes. That might look like spending time with my family while also being pregnant, while also maybe working 6 hours a day. And basically just talking about like how I was able to work X amount of hours or take X amount of time off of my business and still make X amount of money, right? So that's me being a living, breathing example of what it is that I teach. And then that's going to lead me into one of my offers. Probably scalability is the one that would lead best into, because that's all about sustainable scaling and not just being on 24/7 and working, right? So it doesn't always just have to be like, hi, I went to school for 4 years and got a degree about XYZ. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that by any means. Like, that's fantabulous. But it can also be a little bit more creative too, where it's like, what are the things that you've done in your own personal life that add credibility to whatever it is that you teach, right? Because people want to know that you aren't just another person on the internet just sharing things just to share things. Because there are so many people out there who don't have that credibility aspect and they are teaching these things, right? So you want to be a very credible figure. Prompt number 7 is share a case study. No, this is not the same as a screenshot testimonial. A case study should talk about where the client and student was before your offer, their journey with your offer, and what their life looks like now. And it's so important to include details that are like the length of time that it took them to see results, what was the main pain point that they had before joining your offer, and also how your offer specifically helped them. So not just like they achieved XYZ outcome. Yeah, that's great. That's a testimonial, right? We want more detail. An example of this, I had a client, and you'll actually be able to hear from her. Her name's Tina. She's amazing. She'll be in an upcoming episode here in, I don't know, 3 or 4 episodes. And she hit 100K in revenue in her first 9 months of business. So instead of just me sharing, like, she hit 100K in revenue in her first 9 months of business, that's great. I can also share, where was she before? What did that journey look like during the 9 months? Where is she now on her journey? What did she invest in? How much did she invest in? What are the moves that she made to get to where she is? Case studies are powerful because they don't just showcase that what you do works. It shows people that it's possible for them too. And also at the same time, it gives them something tangible that they can implement into their own business because by sharing their journey, there are also lessons that are often shared along the way too. So it's like a threefold benefit where it's like you're benefiting from moving people into your offer, your community's benefiting because they can see that it's possible for them, and your community's also benefiting because there are often lessons that are shared there. Three, it's like a trifold beneficial way to approach things. I just totally made that up. Okay, prompt number 8. Share a unique framework or methodology that you teach inside of an offer and why you created it. How are you going to do this? I want you to think of something that is easy to do and then share how there's a gap between where people are right now versus where they want to go and how you created a framework to get people there. You want to start off the story by saying something along the lines of the truth is, then share a truth and how and why this led you to create your unique framework or methodology. Example: the truth is, building a sustainable business isn't easy. If it was, everyone would be doing it. Making money isn't that hard, but making large amounts of money without working 24/7, that's a different story. This then led me to talking about the unique scalable framework, which is something that I created and teach inside of scalability. Prompt number 9. You want to speak to the desire of where ideal customer or your ideal student wants to go versus the pain that they are currently in. Now, talking about pain points isn't bad whatsoever. Please don't get me wrong. This is just a different approach to things. So I really want you to think about how you can paint the picture of what their dream life looks like without their pain point and how your offer is the way to get them from where they're at right now to where they want to be. An example is instead of saying, are you struggling with growing on Instagram? Say, imagine you wake up in 6 months from now with 5K followers who are engaging with your content and purchasing your offers. Totally different, like, totally different feeling when you go about reading that and even when you go about hearing that, right? Again, I'm not saying that talking about pain points is bad. Please don't get me wrong. Just a different way to approach things. Pro tip here: use ChatGPT to help you create a story. You can give ChatGPT your information about the offer, what is the outcome, all of the different details, and then ask it to write copy in the before after bridge format. Once you give the information, you could say, act as a copywriter and rewrite this information in a before after bridge format. Before after bridge is just a type of copywriting, or I guess a writing format that's in a storytelling format there. Prompt number 10, and lastly, is share 3 to 5 signs that someone needs your offer or service. An example: 3 signs that IG University is for you. Number 1, you're tired of seeing growth tips on Instagram and wondering what actually works and what you should implement. Number 2, in terms of signs, you are done putting in effort and not seeing any results. Number 3, you find yourself aimlessly scrolling on Instagram instead of posting because you are overwhelmed with showing up and how to show up. Again, share those 3 to 5 signs that someone needs your offers. I hope that this episode was helpful in getting you to think outside of the box when it comes to selling your offer, specifically on Instagram stories. But honestly, this is applicable for selling your offer anywhere, inside of an email, even in a podcast episode, like really thinking about how you can shift from just sharing the features and the benefits and the pricing to sharing something that's actually going to engage people and get them to buy your offer.